I think that one of the things that makes it so revolutionary is it's really hard to break a habit with willpower. But if you address the underlying anxiety and unravel that, then you can actually, like, many times you can actually make headway on that. But just having willpower and just being like, I'm not going to do this thing, it's not powerful enough to address the reward centers of the brain.
Right.
That is a way to fail. Welcome to Management Muse.
Because everybody deserves a better manager.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on Management Muse. I'm your host, Cindy Baldy.
Yeah.
And that is my co-host, Jeffrey Tumlin. And today we are talking about taking command of your habits.
Yes, with my first point is about skiing. And so I love to ski, and I ski a lot. I dare say in February, March, and April, it's a habit. And about probably 2 years ago, we were introduced to some research by a guy named Judson Brewer, who wrote a great book called Unwinding Anxiety, based on, I guess, probably 10 years or so of doing this research. And his finding, which I dare say is revolutionary, is that underlying most habits is an anxiety. And so you take my skiing, I know, and it may take you a minute to wrap your head around this, because you think, well, how can there be an anxiety? It's something you love to do. But my falling in love with skiing coincided with an extremely demanding business schedule where I was basically flying somewhere new every day. And the skiing represented a clean break from that. The skiing actually was helping me manage the anxiety of always moving around and always feeling like I was in the spotlight. And here was a place in the middle of the trees on the ski slope, bundled up.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a lot going for it.
Yeah.
We know nature's important to be in to sort of like recharge, but also like you're in control over it.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and so this may take you a while to fully integrate in your life, but the pro tip for habits that almost nobody knows, because this research isn't really that well known, is you will be much more able to form and break habits when you actually address the underlying anxiety itself. And so is skiing something that's helpful for me as a kind of counterweight to the always-on schedule that I have when I'm working? Yes. But there are more precise things that I could do besides skiing to actually address that anxiety.
Well, and I think that one of the things that makes it so revolutionary is it's really hard to break a habit with willpower. But if you address the underlying anxiety and unravel that, then you can actually, like, many times you can actually make headway on that. But like just having willpower and just being like, I'm not going to do this thing, it's not powerful enough to address the reward centers of the brain.
Right.
That is a way to fail.
Yeah, you have to actually move into something that's going to be rewarding.
Right.
Which is why the skiing so quickly became a habit.
But I think maybe if we're thinking about it in terms of building habits, like, you want to address the underlying anxiety. If for some reason that's not possible, then you do want to drive it towards a habit that is going to be positive and not a habit that's negative. And so it's driving it towards something that, generally speaking, is fairly healthy for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can think about, to Cindy's point, I can think about a couple times in my life where there was a lot going on that was extremely anxiety provoking, and I threw myself into the gym, which, if the choice is between drinking more or going to the gym, you'd be better off, as Cindy mentioned, making the habit of going to the gym.
Well, and similarly, I was very young when my father had his first stroke. And there's a family history of just dying young. And so that's always been sort of an anxiety that's shared in the family. And then to like have it in vivid color with my dad having his first stroke when I think I was 15 when he had his first stroke. And so exercise for me, that's like I'm addressing that anxiety. I'm doing what I can do.
Right.
And along the way, like fortunately, like I loved exercise. Like I loved gymnastics. Even before I was in gymnastics, I was like always doing cartwheels and handstands and like flipping my body over. And so like I've always enjoyed movement of my body. And so when that happened, then, you know, the exercise was just very easy to go into because I already had a love, but I could have easily chosen food.
Sure.
My mother is a tremendous baker and she makes like basically amazing cakes almost daily. I could have easily
what about the blueberry muffins?
I also grew up in a snack bar full of candy.
Yeah, sure.
You know, so like I could have easily chosen the food route.
Yeah.
I got lucky, but just directing yourself in a direction that is going to have some positive impact.
And, you know, this is what makes Justin Brewer's work so revolutionary is that you think you're going to the gym because it's a good habit, and that may be, but you're actually going to the gym because you're worried about dying.
Right.
You know, for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been almost entirely vegan. And when I read this work a year or so ago, 2 years ago, I guess now, I realized what's the underlying anxiety behind me restricting my diet like this. And it was coinciding with my hair turning white. And so it's this anxiety of getting older that I could have much more precisely addressed with just learning to be more accepting of it, looking for role models of other people who've aged well, which I know these people, they're all around me.
Your mom's done well.
Yeah. The Rolling Stones, you know, they're 100 years old and they're still on tour. I mean, there's all kinds of examples that I could have used. And instead, I became a vegan, which now that I've reintroduced pizza and realized
God love you
how wonderful that is, I didn't need to be that restrictive. I wish I would have, instead of being straight vegan for years, I wish I would have more precisely addressed the underlying anxiety of getting older.
Shout out to Buena Forqueta because it was a server there who was like,
a server.
Sir,
you have to eat the
just
cheese.
Eat the
he wouldn't
cheese,
let
sir.
me not eat the cheese
he
on
wouldn't even
pizza.
let him get the fake cheese. He's like, sir, what are you doing? You're making a mistake in your life.
You're making a mistake. And so I'm like, all right, I'll have one. And then that was it. Then it was, as we say from the 80s, it was on like Donkey Kong. And then it was shortly after that when we discovered this research. It's controversial because if you're sitting here and you're about ready to go to the gym and you read this, you have to ask yourself, I'm going to, make a slight simplification, but what am I running away from? I'm running to the gym. I'm skiing all winter. What's the anxiety that I'm running away from? And should I work on that instead? Not saying that watching your diet is bad or exercise is bad or skiing is, I'm not saying any of that, but I dare say there's not that many things I know of that are paradigm changing where you change your way of thinking. Mm-hmm. But this is one of them, that our habits are largely fueled by anxiety. And so if you know that, you can work more precisely on the underlying anxiety and dial in your habit a little better.
Let's talk about making habits.
Let's do it. You got to, I think, give a shout out to James Clear, Atomic Habits, BJ Fogg, Tiny Habits, with part 1 of making a habit is start small. The famous example from, I can't remember if it's BJ Fogg or James Clear, who said, if you want to make flossing a habit, start with 1 tooth.
And I do, that sounds so crazy, but you actually, I know I do that all the time. Like you start with something in your teeth and right? Like, so you get out like the little floss stick. And if you do one, you're like,
Keep going.
why in the world wouldn't I do the whole mouth?
You got to keep going. Yep.
So that, I mean, it really does work.
Yeah. We used to, it's been a while, but a lot of times in the past, you and I would talk about kind of asymmetrical payoffs. And so something small that you could do that could have a big impact. We talk about probably the biggest asymmetrical impact that we know of is getting 30 more minutes of sleep is probably the greatest single quality of life productivity optimizer you can do. And in that vein, is there something small that you could do that might make a big change? Whether it's getting more sleep, whether it's we introduced a habit in our marriage where usually, Sunday night through Friday night, or Thursday night, we're usually apart. And so we started a habit. We borrowed the DATE, D-A-T-E mnemonic from Caroline Webb's book, How to Have a Good Day, where D stands for something today you discovered, something you achieved, something you're thankful for, and something you experienced. And we used that every day, and it became a habit for us because we're worried about drifting apart. And so now we're back to this anxiety. The anxiety for the habit is we want to stay married. And this is a very precise thing.
It's an easy structure that basically pulls out a conversation where one wouldn't actually happen otherwise. Because if we didn't have date, what would happen is we'd call each other and be like, "How was your day? Good. How was your day? Good." And that would be the end of the conversation.
No. Anything happen? No.
Right.
When actually
lots
a whole
happens.
ton of stuff happened.
But nothing really noteworthy. It's like just the stuff that during our days we were routinely handling.
Yep. And it's a habit. And it's a good habit. And it is fueled by an anxiety. Having trouble in the marriage or getting a divorce, whatever, that's anxiety. But this is a very precise manifestation of that, a very precise habit that's directly addressing our anxiety about the marriage by reconnecting us in a period of a few minutes. We're usually done with this whole thing in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's a little longer than 2.
2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But it's truly a habit. It's reconnective. And we began... And it's still small. It's 4 things that we comment on, basically. And I can't remember the last time we missed it.
I don't think we miss it.
Yeah. Start small. Your tendency is to think of what's the greatest change that you can make. Like I gotta stop eating meat. I have to work out every day. Whereas maybe it's not stop eating meat, it's adding a salad once a week.
Or it's knowing what size portion you have on the plate.
Sure.
Then you're leaving more and more white space on the plate for like the meat, and you're letting other things take more of the plate, or you're leaving white space on the plate. Like that's another way to do like small. I was just talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about fasting, and she's like, "Well, I can't do that because I'm always hungry." And I said, "Well, don't do it in one foul swoop. Like you do it by like pushing out your first meal an hour and to see how, and then let your body adjust to that. And like, that's again, a small step if that's the direction you want to go in."
Yeah. Which is a good example. So would you, rather than trying to become an intermittent faster, well, why? The cholesterol. Well, what if in this case, what if you just took cholesterol medicine? That might be not only easier, but more precise at alleviating your underlying anxiety than creating a habit, which may only be...
Which may not, it may not
efficient.
Yeah, it's unclear whether or not it would impact it unless you also had a big change in diet. And even then, like some people produce cholesterol. So like it's all unclear about like the cholesterol link.
Yeah. So step 1 for creating a good habit is, as you've said, look for what's something small. I would say step 2 is in a nod to Katie Milkman out of University of Pennsylvania, I believe, who's done a lot of research on seemingly common sense, simple things like start on a good day, start on a Monday. Start at the first of the month. Start on your birthday. Start on a holiday. But people actually picking a Monday to start, or the first of the month, or some other noteworthy day have a slightly greater chance of sticking with things. And then, in a nod to your Duolingo, how many days do you have going, the Duolingo right now?
I'm looking. Hold on. It's not quite a year.
Getting there.
323.
323. Start a streak.
Yeah.
Duolingo's great about this.
Duolingo is really good at this because they basically nag you.
Yes.
And I need nagging.
And you don't want to lose your streak.
I don't want to lose my streak, but also like I am very one focused in terms of like goals. And so like my day gets going and I can easily forget that I didn't do Duolingo, and Duolingo's like, hey, I'm waiting for you.
Yeah.
I'm just a bear, but I think you should do a lesson.
Yeah.
If you do Duolingo, you'll understand that.
Yeah. Yeah. Start small. Pick a good day to start. And by a good day, it can just be whatever.
Let's not start right before you're likely to fail. I think that's...
And people going on a diet before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Not a good idea. Or right before, like on a Friday. Friday's probably not a great day either because you're like free and like, I don't know. Maybe it's the best day because you're free and you have control. Maybe the work day is the wrong one. But you got to think about that. Like set yourself up for success, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Are the conditions actually there for you to be successful?
Yeah, and I think the conditions are for a habit that you need to be able to do this long enough for the old habit to relinquish some of its grip. And that's widely variant.
Yes, there's no 2-week thing.
No.
That's
and there's
actually
no 6-month thing either.
That's a myth. It's so varied depending on
the person,
how
the activity.
Yeah. Because not every habit is built equally.
Right. Yeah. So
and also like your ability to find resolve the underlying anxiety, or find a substitute. Like all of those things are pretty varied.
Yep. Right. Yeah. So anybody who says if you do this new thing for X weeks or X months, you'll have a new habit. Not true.
Well, what they're doing is they're citing very limited research. So it's experiments.
And it's an average.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not.
Right.
Yep. Not useful. And it may make you think you're good when you're not, or vice versa, that it's going to take a lot longer than it actually does.
Let's switch to breaking a habit.
Okay.
Let's have some advice on breaking a habit.
Well, I think the first thing is, as you mention all the time when we talk about this, the need to replace it with something better. And so you can't stop eating dessert by having carrot sticks.
It's never. You can't even stop eating dessert by having grapes, and grapes are delicious, but they're not chocolate.
Yeah. And so how would you recommend somebody to eat less chocolate?
So, I mean, I think a couple of things. Like, you're looking for something that is either better, like it's more rewarding, or you're looking for a way to basically commandeer your brain. And so, like, because when it's a habit and you're having a hard time finding like that better option, like what would be better than chocolate? I mean, I'm not really sure what's better than chocolate. So if you have a chocolate, like that's a hard thing to break.
Well,
but
I'll speculate on that.
Okay.
And so it's possible that, and it may sound corny, but you have to try it. It's possible that taking a walking the dog.
Well, that's more along the lines of what I'm saying. It's not like a substitute. It's doing something that actually engages your brain fully, so it's not sitting there thinking about chocolate.
Yeah.
So it could be walking a dog, because like if you really enjoy that, that's fun. Sometimes I go out and feed squirrels because like I fully immerse myself into that. I find them to be hysterical, and I like there's just a lot of pleasure in feeding squirrels.
Yeah.
The parks hate me.
Why do they hate you feeding squirrels?
They don't like you feeding any wild animal. I'm pretty sure I could be fined
it's a squirrel.
Caught.
For feeding a squirrel?
Yeah. Same with ducks. Can't feed ducks either.
Huh.
So anyway.
All right. But, I mean, people think, all right, I need to stop eating chocolate. And
so they try to switch it
Yes.
with food.
but chocolate
really,
is the apex predator. And so you
so
can't
you have to do something else
bust over.
that basically occupies your brain. Like I can also read fiction, like if it's a really good fiction book, because I'm diving into somebody else's life and it's complete. You are completely in that person's life. So you're not thinking about your own life and your own wants and desires.
Yeah, so you can look outside of the domain, so to speak, and swap your cake with a walk or a squirrel feeding.
Right. And I do want to say something about the reading. You can't swap the reading for, like, if you're doing an escape for reading, make it an escape.
Yeah, positive distraction.
Because you can't do, like, I love reading for work, but as soon as I'm reading for work, I'm thinking about work.
And I hate to do this, but let's not use the word escape because reading is good. Like our buddy Nate Self would say, books are good. Reading is good, but not for an escape, for a positive distraction. So reading for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, no problem. But
but reading for hours.
That's a problem.
Right.
That is running from your anxieties.
Well, that's where it becomes dysfunctional because you're not actually living your life.
You're getting close to disengaging. Right. You're looking forward to watching something on Netflix. Like, I'm going to watch this episode tonight. Great.
As long as you don't have a tendency to binge.
Next episode, next episode, next episode. Right. That's getting away from the benefits of a distraction.
Well, and I think that a lot of the time with binging too, you're not actually distracting yourself because you're not, like, I think, maybe I'm wrong, but the people I've seen that when they're doing binging, they're just using it for, like, company. Like, it's just sound. They're not really watching it. So if you're a binger, like, you get to the point where it's really not that you're watching. You're not actually being positively distracted. You just have noise going on, and then you're sliding into whatever it is that you were actually trying to positively distract yourself from.
I could see that. And then, can I give my favorite example of all time for breaking a habit? When we were in the Army, we drank a lot. And it was just, that time. And it was the 90s. We were in Hawaii. We were all 20 years old. And so when I left the Army and went to graduate school, my drinking dropped off dramatically, but I would still be susceptible to drinking beer on Monday night. I'd watch Monday Night Football, and I'd have a beer, and then I'd have another, then I'd have another. So it's Monday night, and I'm in graduate school, and you actually need to have a brain in graduate school.
On Tuesday,
Yeah. I tried a few different things. I tried using, at the time, again, you got to go back. You got to roll back the clock. This was like 1999, 2000. And so I tried, the only non-alcoholic beer was O'Doul's, and I tried that. And that's like going from cake to carrot sticks or cauliflower, right? And so it was terrible. And so that didn't work. And so, but after a couple of these Tuesday mornings of like, why do I have a headache? Like, this is insane. Drinking beer alone, watching Monday Night Football in graduate school, this is insane. And so I gave away my TV. I literally, probably it was either late 99 or early 2000, drove my TV to Goodwill and gave it away.
By the way, Goodwill doesn't take TVs. I'm pretty sure they don't take any electronics. I'm pretty sure.
They got my TV.
Maybe then.
They got my TV. Goodwill in Austin, Texas got my TV. And it was, there was an internet, but it was AOL, right? So there's no streaming. There's no Amazon, Hulu, Amazon Prime. There's none of that existed.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately I stopped drinking beer on Monday night because the trigger, what was causing the habit, went away. Now, the problem is a lot of times the trigger is harder to work on because how do you take away your anxiety about getting older? You can't just give your gray hair away.
No, but there may be something that triggers it routinely, and you might be able to eliminate that. Like it triggers the awareness of it.
It's interesting. I'm having a little hypothesis here. We were in South Korea not too long ago, and nobody has gray hair in South Korea. Everybody colors their hair.
Yeah.
And so we would get on the subway and people would point me to the elderly chairs. Like 80-year-olds would point me, and I'm not
Guy
80.
with a cane. who's
Guy with
clearly
cane
80,
would
but jet black hair.
jet black hair in a cane, 80 years old, missing some of his teeth. But my God, he had black hair.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting example of, taking away some of the trigger of when that person looks in the mirror. I don't think they're seeing their age as much. So it's possible.
I have an example. I have a really good friend who her mother her whole life was like on her for weight. And so like this is like back in the 80s when like we didn't really understand maybe the impact. She did not become anorexic, but
Yeah, sure.
we didn't understand like the impact
Yeah,
of
sure.
sort of like being
Body
on
image
somebody
stuff.
like
Body
that.
image wasn't even a term.
Right. You know, her whole life, her mother was on her for food. And so she went to, she was in college and she joined the Peace Corps and went to Africa and was living there and came back and was going into the refrigerator to get like, diet ice cream. And her mother says something to her. And she basically like just stops her mom cold in the tracks and is like, we're not going there. Like, I'm going to eat what I want to eat. And what allowed her to do it is that while she was in Africa, people would go up to her and they would tell her, they would say, you're fat. And they would mean that as a compliment.
Yeah.
And so it was very, very healing for her. Because it was people who appreciated her appearance. And so then when she went home and her mother went into like the old routines, and her mother's a nice person. She didn't mean to do something wrong.
Yeah.
And so, but she now has like all this other validation from living 2 years somewhere. And so she's like, no, we're done with this.
Yeah, it impacted the trigger.
Right.
Yeah, the trigger actually went away.
Right.
Yeah, very interesting.
All right, let's talk about from an organizational perspective. I think you have to be careful. Like you have to think about your habits on how, like if you map out how you're spending your day, how much of those are just habits that could have been positive distractions, but you're doing so much of that that you're now not actually doing the work or the most important work.
Yeah, there's a great question. I can't remember if it's Susan Todd from I get the Fierce Conversations and the Emotional Agility. I think Susan Todd is Fierce Conversations and Susan David is Emotional Agility. And Susan Todd famously, like one of her questions that she would ask people in coaching is, what is the most important work that you should be doing right now? And why are you not doing it? And habits can mask what that most important work is with something that isn't precise. It's tangential, but it feels
legitimate and it feels busy.
Yeah. What else?
I think that's it. I think that's all we wanted to cover.
Yep.
That's it for today's show. Get out there and get yourself some good habits and reduce some anxiety.
Yeah. It'd make a change.
Make a habit of subscribing. That's your
right.
new positive habit.
Yep. Get up off that couch. Stop scrolling to your next video. Hit subscribe.
Until next time when we're on, then come on back.
Be good.
All right. Be good. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Management Muse. We are a podcast/YouTube channel that we hope is entertaining and educational. If you are on YouTube, we would appreciate you subscribing and maybe leaving a comment and a like. If you are on any of the podcasts listening to this, we would appreciate stars, following, comments, all the good stuff. We want to say thank you to Sarah and Rebecca. And then just as a last minute reminder, we also want to mention that we are management and communication professionals working in the field, but also have degrees that back us in science. All that being said, We are talking in generalities on this podcast. We do not actually know your particular situation. So proceed with common sense and maybe a little bit of experimentation on your end. And we hope that you make the world a more beautiful place by making work a more enjoyable place. See you next time on Management Muse.